know, by way of introduction, it's been a long time since I've been before a microphone and before cameras. So I would ask for your mercy if I may.
You won't get it.
Oh well. But let me say this. I wrote a blog because I was concerned by the fact that we are in the midst of losing one of the great treasures of Minnesota, the Minnesota Symphony Orchestra. And this is not just a Minnesota instrument of great civic standing, but it truly is both national and world class. I got a letter yesterday, or an email I should say, from a businessman who visited New York, and he said the word around New York and the business community, the people he's talked to, is that they cannot believe that we cannot resolve the dispute and maintain the symphony here, and were we to lose it, it's a serious black eye, and it truly is. So I wrote the blog, and I was delighted with the response, because frankly it wasn't that long, nor that particularly controversial. And Dan Cohen called up and wanted to know what he could do, and the next thing I know, he and Jackie Cherryhomes came together and said, we'd like you to join us in a news conference the next day. So I agreed, but I do applaud them. By way of background, I have worked with both of them. I've worked with Dan Cohen as a member of the City Council long before most of you were born.
You didn't have to say that last part.
There are some exceptions I should note. But having said that, extraordinarily bright, talented, creative, but truly loves Minneapolis. And Jackie, we came together with the Timberwolves and saving the basketball facility, the Target Center that they house. And her leadership was really extraordinary. I can honestly say I don't think we would have been able to have that project succeed if it weren't her kind of leadership. And so it's wonderful to have two old colleagues come together and say, you know what, we're going to dedicate ourselves to try to save the symphony from Minnesota. And I think it's entirely appropriate. I applaud their efforts, and I'd like to see, frankly, more leaders come on board. I know the questions you're going to ask are going to be political, but the real question is, I wish there were 30 back here. And I mean that most sincerely, because this is not something that belongs to the mayor, to the city council, to the governor, to the legislature. It belongs to the public. When there was a problem relative to both our baseball team and our football team, leadership stepped up immediately to the plate. And I think it's fair to assess that the generosity of the taxpayer in both instances has certainly been apparent, and the over-generosity in the latter is equally apparent. So one of the things I'd like to suggest is bringing together a broad group of leaders and start to figure out how this $6 million gap can be closed. And I would love to see not just the community, but I'd like to see government entities, the Legacy Fund, all reviewed. I'd like to see the Vikings step forth and say that yes, we got an overly generous deal from the taxpayer, and we're going to become part of the solution for Orchestra Hall. I think that's entirely appropriate. But the point being, let's start to bring people together, discuss various options, but by all means, make sure that we keep the symphony in place. Let me at this time introduce, well, I don't have to introduce them. You know them both. I don't know who wants it. Dan, you want to go first?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We're mentioning the Minnesota Symphony as a great civic asset, but we also have a great civic asset in Governor Arne Carlson. He's taken it upon himself to show once again, as he has always shown, his leadership. And I'm flattered and honored to be associated with this effort. What I would hope that we can achieve at this point in moving forward is to have this city speak with one voice, united, to get this orchestra back on its feet and performing before the world, not just the nation, not just the state, but before the world as it has before, and bring Minnesota and Minnesota values before us permanently to make this orchestra come back to what it is and should be. And I believe that we can do this. I would like to start by referring this matter to the Minneapolis City Council and the mayor to act to say that they will provide whatever is needed in the way of operating funds to carry this forward at this point so we can get back on our feet and get started to reach a permanent solution. And to that end, Jackie Cherryhomes is going to discuss a permanent solution approach to this problem.
Thank you, and thank you, Governor Carlson. You know, great leadership doesn't end when you leave public office. It continues on, and Governor Carlson has shown that though not in office, he still has a great engagement in our civic well-being. And you know, a city is great when we have everything. When we have professional sports, when we have theater, and when we have music. And it's a tragedy that we don't have the orchestra right now. And that's not just about Minneapolis, as Dan and Governor Carlson have said. This is a national treasure, and we need to preserve it, and we need to find a way to solve what I think of as the sort of the short-term problem around how do we get the orchestra playing again in this beautifully, newly renovated building, and then how do we support the arts long-term? You know, we've figured out that it's important to support professional sports long-term, but we don't have long-term sustainable support for the arts, and I think we need to figure that out. That should be one of our priorities. Maybe we need to lobby at the legislature for more legacy funds for the arts. Maybe we need to think about, as a city, how do we redistribute our entertainment and liquor taxes so that we support the arts and not just sports, because both sports and arts contribute to the health and well-being of our city. So I think our immediate task is to get the orchestra back playing again, and I think that the governor has called for a broad committee to figure out how do we bridge the gap in finances that are there right now. And then I think longer term we need to look at every creative source we can to ensure that we have sustainable funding for the arts in our city, because the orchestra is important to all of us. So that's why we're here today. Thank you.
So are you calling for a city bailout of the